Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis took over Dune around 1976, and in 1979 Ridley Scott was hired as director. For nearly a year, Scott worked with screenwriter Rudy Wurlitzer on an adaptation, later saying that their script turned out pretty good. In spite of this, Scott would abruptly depart the production in the early 80s. The exact reason for his exit remains somewhat uncertain. According to Paul Samon's Future Noir, The Making of Blade Runner, the director said it was the sudden death of his brother that motivated him to abandon Dune so that he could switch focus to the gloomier and far more personal science fiction world of Blade Runner. More recently, Scott has offered interviewers a different explanation, saying that the movie's prospective facilities in Mexico City were not quite up to his professional standards. Experimental maverick and popular surrealist hero David Lynch, who'd recently broken into the mainstream with The Elephant Man, was brought on as his replacement in 1982. Lynch's Dune, released in 1984, went on to become a gigantic critical and commercial failure, the lone sore spot in its director's highly distinguished filmography. Even today, Lynch largely refuses to discuss the movie, and has said that he has no interest in ever seeing Villeneuve's new version. Much like Jodorowsky's interpretation, Lynch's surrealist take on the novel has proved divisive. However, in contrast to the increased hostility that seems to be developing towards Jodorowsky's Dune, Lynch's Dune seems to gain a warmer reception as time goes on. Jodorowsky, although he maintains a very strong following, remains, by choice, a thoroughly fringe figure, whereas Lynch, almost improbably, has come to be embraced by the mainstream culture at large in a way that perhaps no other avant-garde artist has achieved since the days of Pablo Picasso or Salvador Dali. Lynch's style is so well known and so beloved by this point, most people now seem to instinctively understand that his version of Dune isn't really meant to be a faithful adaptation. The original book only serves as a springboard for Lynch to create a massive and bizarre world of his own. The movie does have its problems, which have been widely dissected, and it clearly buckles under the weight of trying to capture the full scope of the book's universe and narrative complexities. Even so, it's a gorgeous visual achievement, and a thoroughly Lynchian experience in unearthly atmosphere. The film's disastrous reception in 1984 caused the property to fade from the popular eye for a while, before it re-emerged over 2 decades later as a miniseries in 2000. In that time, Herbert's novels began to sink into an enormous copyright quagmire, putting them in danger of never being seen on screen ever again. Producer Richard Rubinstein managed to circumvent this problem in 1996 by acquiring the television rights, which at that point nobody even seemed to care about. In this age of blockbuster television and streaming, it's important to remember that Frank Herbert's Dune, which premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel to some of the highest ratings in the network's history, was one of the first television productions of its kind. The miniseries is often criticized for its lackluster special effects and somewhat goofy design, but it was a huge gamble for its time, both in physical scale and technical complexity, arguably representing something of a breakthrough for more ambitious and effects-driven television production. It's also an adaptation with its own strengths. Writer-director John Harrison, an avowed Dune fanatic, was able to use his detailed knowledge of the books to flesh out the political intricacies and character relationships in a way that neither Lynch's nor Villeneuve's Dune were able to do. It doesn't have the same visionary impact as either of those films, but I would argue that Harrison's much-maligned interpretation deserves a reappraisal. In terms of representing Herbert's original text, this may actually be the most faithful adaptation. Not the best, but perhaps the most faithful. In 2008, Dune returned to Hollywood as a prospective blockbuster franchise. Paramount Pictures announced production on a new feature film, which spent about 3 years in development, mainly under the guidance of action directors like Peter Berg and later Pierre Morel, before being cancelled in 2011. In 2016, Legendary Pictures managed the none-too-easy task of acquiring the rights to the property, and the following year announced that French-Canadian virtuoso Denis Villeneuve would be helming the project. Expectations rose high, and after several delays and concerns that the film's theatrical performance would be sabotaged by a same-day streaming release on HBO Max, the first part of Villeneuve's Dune premiered in October 2021. It did not disappoint.